Hello, John Kearon. Hello, everyone. Paul Makinson here from Ad News, editor-in-chief at Ad News. We're talking with John Kearon. I think you're in London. Is that right, John?
I certainly am. Sunny London. I just want to make that point. You know, very sunny, early morning. Hi, Paul.
Hey, yeah, enjoy the surprise with the sun over there. So John Kearon's a very interesting character. I've had a couple of conversations with him over the last few months. He was out here and gave a very provocative speech, or maybe not provocative, just enjoyable, and maybe Ad News turned it into a provocative piece in which we put him on the cover and talked about this whole area of behavioural science. And it's essentially, we'll get John to talk about it, but basically behavioural science comes out of a thread from economics thinking on how even the economists are having to come to terms with the fact that people may be a little bit more emotional than they are rational, and it's found its way into the research sector and for brands, marketing, advertising, and so forth. So John's at the front end of behavioural science-based research, and welcome. Mate, just give us a little lowdown, John, on essentially what is systems thinking, system 1, system 2. Underlying all this, of course, is that emotion is more powerful. We're overlooking it, and rational thinking has a role, but it's been usurped. It's usurped emotion, and we need to get things back in order. That's essentially your premise of both.
Yeah, I mean, to connect the two disciplines, basically, for anyone listening that had the joy of doing economics degree, so I'm afraid Homo economicus, the rational maximizing kind of human decision-making model, is dead. Homo emoticus is alive and well. And if you bring it into marketing, what strikes me, or what struck me, was that pretty much the whole of marketing is predicated on a left brain, right brain model of how human beings make decisions and therefore how marketing works. And we've kind of assumed without question that roughly it's 50% rational, 50% emotional. The best metaphor I've ever heard for the current model of marketing is that it's a fist of a brand proposition, the USP, wrapped in a velvet glove of emotion. Yeah, so what marketing and advertising is about is we lure people in with the emotional kind of velvet glove, and then we can hit them with why our brand is better than the competitor's brand and persuade people to buy. Yeah, hopefully that's that rings true. I know it's a simple thing, but hopefully everyone listening can get the sense of that. Now, along comes Daniel Kahneman, whose claim to fame is he's the only non-economist to ever win the Nobel Prize for economics. He's a psychologist. And the way he describes the brain is he says, look, it's better to think of it as split into system 1, because it's the original human brain, and system 2. And system 1 is the emotional, instinctive, intuitive brain, and system 2 is the cognitive, analytical, developed second, if you like, when the brain was developed. So look, at this point, I realized that it sounds like, 20th century was left brain, right brain. 21st century is, system 1 and 2. What's the difference? Well, here's the difference. If you split system 1 and system 2 into computing power, system 2, the clever thinky bit, would be 50 bits of computing power, and system 1, the emotional, instinctive, intuitive brain, 11 million. 50 versus 11 million. And I think you heard me say when I did my presentation, if the fire alarm goes off and the technology fails us, one thing to remember, we think much less than we think. And I'm afraid I've been as guilty as anyone in the industry, but we've got to basically get much, much more instinctive, emotional, and intuitive about what we're doing if we want to do famous 5-star marketing.
So if that is a universal truth, if you like, John, that we think much less than we think, why do we think so much, and why is the corporate culture and branding and communication heading into so much more of a thinking rationale paradigm? How did we get here, and why are we here?
Well, because I think it sounds not only plausible but sensible. When you're a chief marketing officer spending large, millions, of your company money, it seems the sensible thing. Surely you're not just to entertain people. You're there to make sure that yes, you can entertain your attention, but surely once you've got there, the purpose of spending millions would be to impart a message, to persuade people. And so I'm afraid we've all bought into this notion, this very plausible, sensible notion of how marketing should work. The only problem is it's not how famous marketing works. And recently, and this is just one example, but Paul Smith, famous designer, one of his design team is don't make sense. Now that's an extreme opposite of the, kind of Unilever's, Nestle's, Procter & Gamble's of this world, where everything is, insight, benefit, reason to believe, and it all sounds so sensible that that's what people want. But explain to me why pink mobile phones, were the hit of one of the years. I mean, this is years back, but I think it was the pink Razr phone. You can't enter pink Razr phone in that phone. Night, benefit, and reason to believe. It's a pink one, and it just happened that pink meant that it was the hit selling product of all products that particular year, that particular Christmas. I'm afraid we are irrational creatures, and actually gloriously so. I mean, that's the point of humanity. We are moved emotionally and instinctively. It doesn't mean that we make dumb decisions, by the way. It just means that over 1 million years of evolution, we've evolved an ability to make very fast decisions. Anyone who's read Blink, basically the whole of Blink from Gladwell's book is about one. It works for us pretty well on most occasions, and a few occasions, i.e. it comes to mathematics, when it fails. And actually, we're really bad at statistics and calculations, and Homo economicus tries to hope that we are good at. We're not, would it?
It's good. So listen, before I forget to everyone, questions out and I'll ask John for you, make sure they're curly, because if you don't throw curly ones, I will be, but we've got to make this man in London pay for his sunshine. John, the premise of everything you're talking about then is, you're obviously in the research business, so what is wrong with how research is being done now vis-a-vis the way you do it and how establishment research does it? What's the problem?
Yeah, I mean, when you put forward this system 1, system 2 kind of idea, I mean, increasingly, I'm glad to say, you get a lot of people nodding in the audience going, I can see, you're right. Famous marketing isn't really about message and persuasion, it's about seduction. When you then start to think about market research, particularly quantitative market research, which, by the way, is 80-odd% of all market research globally, quantitative market research is a system 2 edifice, if ever there was one. We've been measuring what we can measure. So classic things like purchase intention, brand recall, the stalwart questions of concept testing and even advertising testing. Basically, I'm afraid it's a nice measure, and quantitative market research companies specialize in nice, heavy, 120-page documents, feel the weight, as a proxy for insight. But I'm afraid we've been measuring largely the wrong things. We've been measuring the system 2 post-rationalizations of what people think they might do in the future, which are not the same as our pre-cognitive instincts. So to give you 2 very quick examples, because I know hopefully we'll get into this a bit more, but in packaging testing, so let's just take something really simple. The way that quantitative packaging testing today is usually people designs, and apart from one question where you have to find the pack shelf under time pressure, every question, consumers can sit, scratch their chins as they like, and weigh up what the designers do on a number of scales. The whole thing is analyzed, and every part of the is split. All you have to do is basically ask those same questions but put people under time pressure so they can't take longer than seconds to answer any question, and it changes the result. So literally, the test, which is what's done around the world, will let's say the brand leader pack is superior to number 2. And if you put people under time pressure, which we did in a pet care example, Whiskers Felix, with a cartoon, it revealed completely it revealed that the cartoon cat was by far the superior pack. It works on shelf. Remember, people are shopping on habit. People are shopping on autopilot. We don't think as we're going around the supermarket very much at all. And we've done that in 5 different categories and got the same result every time. So it's just one example, but I'm afraid packaging testing just doesn't work. It actually points you in the wrong direction, and that's why it's important, and that's why I get kind of quite exercised by the whole thing, because I really think that market research, quantitative market research, is doing a disservice to famous 5-star marketing.
And it's the same for communications as well. Is it the same implications there that brands and brand marketers, brand owners are missing things, missing tricks, missing real insight because of the measurement methodology, the research methodology?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably most evident when it comes. What's that, Paul?
That wasn't just a question. That was just a really easy one.
Well, look, I mean, as you know, and anyone who's read any of my stuff, I mean, it shows itself most when it comes to advertising pre-testing, communications. Because basically, the model of advertising that everyone's been working to isn't what creates famous ads. I was in Cannes last week, watching all the Grand Prix. Say again?
You dropped out then, sorry.
Okay, I was just saying, the model of advertising, which is practiced by Unilever, Procter and Gamble, and most advertisers, assumes this fist of a proposition wrapped in the velvet glove of emotion. If you boiled everything down, and again it's a simplification, what they are trying to do is produce advertising which engages. It's like a triangle: engagement, message, and brand recall. And companies like Millward Brown and GfK, and I mean basically all of the leading pre-tests, what they're essentially measuring is a fist of a proposition. Did you communicate the message, and was there some sort of emotional engagement? They're trying to do both. They assume that System 1 and System 2 in equal measure is what makes the most successful adverts. And I think it only takes a nanosecond of thought to ask the audience, what is your favorite ever commercial from your childhood or from the last year or two? And you realize that the most famous adverts are pure emotion. They do not try and impart a message. They do not try and persuade you. It is pure seduction. It makes you feel joyous, or frankly, by the way, makes you tear your hair out. Adverts that make you angry have more commercial impact than adverts that make you feel nothing. The worst thing you can do is feel nothing. Feel nothing, do nothing. Feel lots, buy lots. So, even negative, the ads we love to hate, that's why they work. Not as much as the ones we love to love, but they're pretty good.
And does the issue of recall or memory, liking something from my childhood, which is probably not as far back as yours, I'm not sure, I'm just going to have to play there with that one, speculate. But the stuff that I remember, does it work for the brands as much as it works for me, John? So the impact, the commercial impact of the recall, and what the impact it has on the brand and the business. Is there a link there, though?
Yeah, so several connected things. Brand recall, just to start at the technical question end of things, brand recall is the wrong question. Brand recognition is what matters. So do I recognize the brand when I come to the shelf and to buy it? Does it evoke the emotion that the advert made me feel is the only thing that matters. Whether I can name the brand after the advert is a very poor predictor and indicator of whether it's worked. And if you get a famous ad, of course, it becomes known as the Cadbury Gorilla or the Coca-Cola I'd like to teach the world to sing song or whatever, or the Just One Cornetto. So that's the first point. The second one is, does it actually go into part of the culture? Yeah, it does. And even more than that, it becomes part of the brand. I think one of the notions in ad development that's just wrong and not helpful is that we have this sense that great advertising could only have been done for that brand. There's something about the advert that has captured the DNA of that brand and expressed it in a really creative way, and a way that only that brand could have had. And we've overdone the idea of differentiation and uniqueness, the unique selling proposition. The truth is that famous adverts that make us feel something are nearly always a universal human truth, beautifully told and bravely attached to the brand. So the P&G Thank You Mums campaign could have been pretty much for any brand. The Cadbury Gorilla, so the story goes, the creative team that sold the famous drumming Cadbury Gorilla to Cadbury tried to sell that same idea to 3 other brands in different categories before Cadbury's. And actually, although it's an extreme example, you could have done that for any brand. The point is, it wasn't. The point is that Cadbury were brave enough to do it and do it first, and then they own it forever and ever. Amen. And I think the idea of the big idea, at the moment, when you work with in advertising, there's the insight, and then you get the brief, what's the brand DNA, and then you get what's the big idea, and then the brilliant execution is supposed to pop out the other end like magic. This is never the way that famous advertising is produced. Not ever. And I've talked to lots of creative directors and they all laugh and they go, yeah, you're right. It's just a genius piece of execution from which you can extract a big idea, but it's that way around. Let's not kid ourselves that this is a nice linear process. The only brief you should give the agency is make my brand famous. Do something massively emotional that becomes famous, and it will stand the test of time.
Communication that is outside what we may have called in the past a big television campaign, a piece of big multimedia video. Does the same thing apply now in social media, in the Facebook feeds, in what you're doing with Twitter? How do you apply this methodology to this increasingly fragmented channel base, and you've got a whole bunch of things you've got to do, a brand has to do? How do you do it in that case? What should brands be doing with this thinking?
Well, I think that the good news, I think for this thinking is that it's pretty self-evident to most brand owners that they can't do the old model of TV advertising where you're bashing people away with a message when it comes to digital advertising. When it comes to making these digital pieces, it's completely obvious to them and self-evident that they actually have to make a piece of entertainment. They actually have to engage people and kind of go easy on the brand message. And I think, even though what I'm saying to them is, it works the same whether it's paid for TV or whether it's kind of free viral media. But basically, I think it's going to be the opportunity to prove that I don't know if you've seen the now famous Jean-Claude Van Damme doing the splits between the 2 Volvo trucks. But that sort of film, which I think has been watched almost 100 million times now, or the Dove sketches, there's something just incredibly emotional, exciting or surprising, and actually that's the way that all communication, if you want to be famous, works. Now, trying to do that on Twitter is a hell of a lot harder, but when you have a power cut at the Super Bowl and you're Oreo, and someone is just creative and smart enough or cheeky enough to basically equate the power cut with, well, at least Oreo, you can still dunk your Oreo, brilliant. I mean, that was actually the hit of the Super Bowl, and it was totally unexpected and totally spontaneous. I mean, it was brilliant.
So what are the conversations? Who's applying this? What brands are applying this methodology now around the world? I know we've talked about, kind of got some conversations going in Australia with Telstra and perhaps Westpac, at least conversations, but you made the observation before we started that there seems to be a lot of telcos around the world that are sort of testing this methodology versus conventional market research approach.
I think what's interesting is it is telcos. So AT&T in America, we're just starting, to test all of their stuff. 3Mo UK have been fantastic case studies, and if anyone hasn't seen it, it's worth typing "moonwalking pony" YouTube, and see the 3 moonwalking pony, which is, again, just one of those pure genius adverts. And we also did Guinness wheelchair basketball stuff. The truth is that I think it's the categories that recognize that there's really not much product differentiation. So banks, telecoms, where actually they're defaulting to, well, okay, it's got to be emotional. So it's easier. I think it's probably more obvious to them that they have to do something distinctive rather than differentiated. Yeah. But the truth is, it works. It just works. This is the way human beings make decisions. And when I present this stuff to a wider audience than just marketing, so it's more general interest, the fascinating comeback from the audience is nearly always, but John, isn't this what all advertisers are doing now? And then they quote at me the famous ads of the moment. And I say to them, no, what you've just demonstrated is the only adverts that anyone notices are the ones that I'm talking about. And suddenly you think that's what everyone's doing. No, they're a tiny, tiny fraction of what all advertising is doing. And most of it is utterly, deeply average, and forgettable, and I'm afraid we'll do nothing. It's a waste of time, effort, and money. You know that famous, what was it? Ascribed to Lord Leverhulme or Wanamaker. I know that half of my advertising money is wasted. I just don't know which half. No, 99.9%, I reckon, of all advertising is wasted, or something pretty large. And I can tell you which bit is the bit that isn't wasted. It's the stuff that makes you something. And that's quite rare in the scheme of all advertising.
It's great. So the people on the webcast, type in some questions for us. I'll ask John. I think we've got about 5 minutes left. We really good. I definitely implore people to do a search on Dancing Pony. It's called, isn't it, John? Is it Dancing Pony for 3Mobile?
Yeah, the Moonwalking Pony.
Sorry, Moonwalking Pony. Very funny. And tell us a bit about the results of it, because you can see that if someone's sort of hardcore marketer or a hardcore rational person saw that piece of communication, you go, yeah, entertainment, but what did it do for the brand? What did it do for the business? Did it move? Did it sell anything? The results on that one are good, right?
So that advert ran about 16 months ago, and they've done a subsequent one this January. So each year they're doing another one. So it's Singing Kitty, a little girl on a tricycle with a singing cat in the basket, which has also been very successful. So they were the number 6 brand in the market, and they are now the number 5 brand. So they've overtaken their nearest competitor. They've got the fastest number of account openings. But here's the bad news, and I think it's really important to share with everyone. The way that advertising is measured is nearly always in the weeks or possibly perhaps the 2 or 3 months after the advert has aired. Yeah, this is the way that all brands track and look at whether the advertising was effective. And I've got some bad news. Famous advertising does not work like that. I'm afraid it does not work in a short-term blip after when the advert is shown. It works basically medium to long term, But here's the good news. Most advertising, I mean, we measure stuff on a 5-star scale. So most advertising is 1 to 3 stars. And it's basically that fist of a proposition wrapped in a velvet glove. And that does work short term. But effectively what you're doing is you're paying for a short-term promotion. So your sales will go up a bit, and then they will come back to exactly the same level. So all you've done is spend money, which you may as well have spent on a promotion. It's effectively a visual promotion. What famous advertising does is it allows you to increase the price, do less promotion, and win brand share. In other words, drives profitability in a meaningful way. So it moves the needle. It moves your brand share and your position in the market in a meaningful way. The famous Andrex puppy adverts basically allowed Andrex to charge a 30% premium to any other toilet paper for about 20 years. You know, that's what brilliant famous advertising actually allows you to do, and it goes straight to the bottom line in the long term.
What is the, just so, right, we've got a couple of minutes left. What are the skeptics, the client, the brand owner skeptics, what are their counterpoints to what you say? What do they say? Yeah, all this makes sense, John, but what are the buts that come back at you that stop this?
Probably the main buts, so the number one main butt would be that doesn't work in my category. So if you're working in toothpaste or something that's regarded as a functional category, they will assume that that's not right. I mean, pharmaceuticals would be the ultimate of that. And the answer is not true. The human brain is singular. It works one way, and it works the same way for every single category. From us buying a house, which surely, if anyone is ever going to make a rational decision, it should be a house buying, because it's the most money that most of us spend in a lifetime. And as we all know, we fall in love with a house. This one, I don't quite know why, but, you know, and every estate agent knows that the person who comes through the door will not buy the house they think they're going to buy. You know, we're irrational, I'm afraid. It works in every category. The second one is when I go to America, pretty much the reaction was, gee, that's the way that British advertising works, or maybe, you know, Australian, it's got humor, etc. But it's not the way that advertising works in America. And I say to them, that's very interesting. America is this weird place where for the whole year you do this hard sell advertising, and then during the Super Bowl, it's like an amnesty. It's like every brand falls over itself to do emotional, you know, kind of incredibly intuitive advertising. And you know what? Those are the ads that are most remembered for the rest of the year. And they don't seem to have ever joined the dots that is actually a more effective way to do advertising. And we've done a lot of work in America to prove that it works the same in America, same in China, same everywhere, because human beings are pretty much the same everywhere. Those are probably the biggest ones. And the third one is actually the one I'm most sympathetic to, which is, but we've always done it with Millward Brown, and we've always done it this way, and it's a bit difficult for me to change the culture of the, you know, my company is pretty much a system 2 culture where I have to have sensible advertising that sells the benefits of our products. And I can't really just go to the CEO and the board and show them an entertaining ad that, you know, that moves people emotionally. That's the most difficult one, and that's where we're helping clients to, you know, to actually use examples and show the board the power of doing emotional advertising commercially. And actually, we've had CFOs join our side by going, the evidence is pretty clear. This is the way to do it. Although it seems more frivolous, if you like, more playful, it's actually more hard-nosed and commercial in the end.
I think we're out of time. I need a note. I think we're out of time. Tell me how long I've got. But I think you made a point earlier in the year, John, that actually your resistance isn't... The argument actually wins favour from CEOs faster than does the marketing industry. CEOs get it faster than the industry you're dealing with. Am I right on recalling that one?
Yeah, it's true actually. CFOs, because they are actually, show me the evidence, they don't really have a philosophy of how advertising should work to undo. So they're actually, they're open to the evidence. And the evidence is overwhelming and clear that emotional advertising is what produces the biggest long-term commercial effect, profitability. And that's been joyous when you get a CFO actually, leaning in and supporting the marketing director to do this sort of advertising, because the evidence is clear that it's basically not only more effective, it's massively more efficient. I mean, literally just one thought, and then hopefully there'll be some curveball questions and things, but the classic media plan, everyone in media knows that 6.7 opportunities to see is the minimum. It's regarded as the minimum number of times someone has to see an advert for it to work. How many times do you think you have to see P&G Thank You Mums, or the Cadbury Gorilla, or an old one, Just One Cornetto, for it to have almost all the emotional resonance it's going to have? Once. Twice is a pleasure. You change the rules of how often you have to show adverts, and it changes the media money that you need to spend in order to have this massive effect, especially when you've got the internet where things can go viral as well. So yeah, it changes everything, which is kind of a difficult message, but it's a fun message.
I realise we're actually out of time, and I don't get to throw anything curvy at you, so I'm going to have to make up for that next time. I'm told here the notice we're up. So I will say thank you, John Kearon, for that. You're interesting and you're provocative, so I like people like you. Keep it up. We'll have I'll be back with you on some counterpoints from Millward Brown on your thoughts too, by the way. We'll follow up on that one. But thank you, John Kearon, and we'll talk very shortly.
Pleasure. Thanks, Paul. Nice to chat.